Recording. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. So today we are going to discuss about the security, HANA security, DB security. So in SAP layer also we have the security features are already installed in application also. SAP is three-tier architecture as we know, right? Presentation layer, application layer, and a DB layer. This is the database. So last, this is the DB layer. So now we are discussing about the database. So in the database, so we have the application side also. We have the security features. Whenever you are logging into the system, you have the SAP user ID, password, some security features, audit. Everything's are enabled in the SAP side. At the same time, whenever you have the DB level, suppose separately you want to work with the DB, so you have to use the user ID and the password. You need to use it. You need to use in the DB user ID and the password also. You have to use it. So so here also we have the data, right? Actual data resides into the all application data, your organizational data, company data, everything will store into the database level only. So database level only. So why we read security means is protecting the important data, to protecting the data from unauthorized access. And also every organization there is a security policies. So we need to follow the standard organization security policies and the compliance. So all these things we need to meet as recommended by the SAP as our organization, right? Same way. So if anyone log into the HANA database or if any data is coming, so we have the confidential data inserts into the database level. If someone hacks your database, someone hacked your database, someone is hacking your database, which means so all the confidential data you can theft, right? You can theft it. So that's why we need the security as well. There is a security features in, so three layers we have the security features. Application server level, presentation layer, which means you are logging with your client desktop, a GUI with the user ID and the password. From there, in SAP layer also you have the security features are installed. In the database level also you have the security features are installed. So wherever you go, definitely you need a user ID and a password, right? Definitely you need a user ID and a password is required in the three layers. At the same time, now we are discussing about the HANA administration. In the HANA administration also, by default, we have system user is created, but everyone we are using the same system user ID to log into the HANA database and so doing our administration activities. But that is not the recommended approach. Everyone logging with the common same user ID and password. So it's not the recommended approach. But what we have to do? So we have to log in with the individual user IDs and we need to work on that one, right? So we need to work on that one. So, but here we have not created any IDs. Now, how to create the ID? First of all, what is the user ID here? So, what are the passwords we need to create it? Where we have to create it? So, in the HANA Studio, we need to create the HANA Studio. We need to create it. HANA Studio, we need to create the user ID and the passwords. At the same time, how other databases and applications also providing the security features, in HANA also providing the security features. So in security features, which means so each database, so HANA is the MDC, multi-database container. Each database you need to create the one security user ID passwords you have to create it. Without user ID password, you cannot log into the systems. Either if you want to do the system DB, you can log into the system DB with the user ID password. Tenant DB, you need to log in with the tenant user ID and the password you need to log in. So which means everywhere, each database, each tenant database, you need to, if all are installed in the one host, even though you need the user ID and the password to log into the database, to connect to the database, right? So suppose one more thing, during the HANA administration side, few people they don't require the administration studio access. In that case, what we can do, we can provide the just only whatever the levels of access we required, only that level of access we can provide it. freshers, they don't require the much more access. Then we can provide the only monitoring related access we can provide it, right? So that restrictions we can provide it. Otherwise, what happens if he don't know, is unknowingly he can delete something. If he delete something, so then again it will create the noise in the company, right? So something like if you delete something, so that's the reason security is the very important, and also protecting the databases from unauthorized access also is very important. So the same time, SAP also providing the few security features to us. That is called the HANA providing the some security features to us. What are the security features HANA is providing to us? So normally user and role management, user and role management, then and also authorizations, not only user ID and password, and also authorizations with the specific tab, the specific functionality, and also the authentication mechanism. Authentication also we Azure SAP is providing. Not only authorizations, authentications, user ID, role, then encryption. So encryption of the encryption of encryption of data data persistence storage. That is called the encryption of the data folder at the OS level, and also encryption of the data in the network layer. So encryption mechanism. So encryption mechanism, so SAP is providing in the network layer. Also we have the so security, so encryption, so authentication. So these all are the security features HANA is providing to the us, right? So HANA is providing to the these are the security features HANA is providing to the us. So coming to the, if I talk about the one by one user and role management, if I talk about the one by one, so user and role management is like, so this is for the user and role management, same as like how we are logging to the HANA database with user ID and password. So that is the user ID and password. So normally SAP side on top of HANA database, we will install the SAP, right? So SAP side, we have already security features are already enabled. But even though for the database level also, we have the one more security mechanism is enabled. So that is the user and role management. So here you to perform this one user and role management, and then how to create the users. So all these things, so we can check it out now. So user and role management, so user and role management side, so we have to normally whenever you are creating the user, you are logging to the user. Here we have the two types of users are there, one is the DBA user. This is, we will call it as the technical users, means we are the technical users. The second one is called the real user, means database restricted users. So one is the standard user, second one is the restricted user. So these are the real user, maybe we will call it technical user, means we. Next one is the, so real users means the users who will log into the, is kind of end users, the developers, the functional teams. So they will log into the database. Those are the real users. And technical users means we are the technical users, actually DBA administrators are the technical users. Administrator are the technical users. So the person who are you are creating the technical user, he directly, he can log into the HANA database, he can create the users, he can, whatever he want, he can do everything from the, so database level. So which means he is the administrator. Means we are the basis persons are the technical users, and we are the administrators. We can create the other users, we can create the objects, we can create everything in the database level. So these are the security features HANA is providing. In that, we are talking about the user and role management. In the user and role management, so user, users, how many types of users are there here? Here we have two types of users. One is the technical user, he is the DBA, database administrator. Second one is the real users. Real users means who wants to work in the HANA database, they need a database user, but that is having the limited access, not the administrator access. So limited access means in the real users we have standard. In the limited access also we have the standard users. Then second one is the restricted users. There are the two types of users in the real users. So standard users and real users. Standard users means the person, the developers, you can create the objects and we can read the data, other things and everything. So those are the standard users. Standardly, normally all users are standard users. You can create the everything, but you cannot create the user ID, passwords for the other users and everything. Why? Because here we have the DBA, database user is there, database administrator user, technical users. So that person is the, he can create the all these users. You can create the technical users. You can create the real users in the database. Right? He's the administrator. That's why we will call it as the DBA, database administrator. But in the real time, real users, we have the two types of real users are there. Standard users. Standard user means this user can only create the objects in a host schema. So he has schema. So he has separate schema. In that schema, he can only create the objects and he can read the data from the system use and other things he can create it. Maybe for this users, the public role is assigned to read the views. There is some public roles, create user, the authorizations, the roles which we can assign to the standard users. So restricted users means we are restricting to not to access the full SQL functionality, and we are restricting just you can only view, we can only view the data. We are restricting. Restricted user means we are restricting the user to connect to the create the database objects. We are restricting the user not to access the SQL data. We are restricting the users not to access the view of the data. So some HTTP functionalities we are restricting. Those are the restricted users. Standard users means you can create the objects, but you cannot create the administration users and everything. So only administration, admin technical users has access to perform the administration tasks, stopping, starting, backups, restore, and everything. But real users, he can log into the HANA database, he can create the objects in his host schema and everything he can do it. Restricted users means it does not have access to the anything in the system. Those are the restricted users. Restricted users. So now we'll discuss about how to create the users in HANA database. First of all, how to create the users in HANA database. So if you see here, you can go to the HANA Studio. Initially, we need to log in with system user, but after that you need to create the one users. Suppose like example security. Every HANA tab when you add it, you will get the 4 folders, actually 4 or 5 folders: backup, catalog, content, provisioning, security. So now we are discussing about the security. So if you expand the security feature, then here we have the roles, users, and roles features are there. So users means what are the current users we have in the system, which come as part of the installations. By default, you will get these users as part of the installations. That's why you can see the system and some other system users are there. So system user is ours, like which we are logging, technical user, database administrator user, which we are logging to the system. Now right click on the this user, right click on the this to create the user. You need to right click and click the new user and restricted user, standard user or restricted user. You can see here. So we are the new users. We are the new users with the full functionalities. Then I am creating the new user here. So what is the username we have to provide here? So you can provide the any username here. Suppose like Ravi. I created the one user as Ravi here. Then you can set the password here. You can set the password. Okay, you can set the password. This is the authentication. So when we talk about the authentications, authentication means how many authentication methods SAP is providing to us. Authentication methods. So these are the authentication methods. So authentication methods means the user which you are creating in the system that identifies who are accessing the data, and it will be verified. Authentication means the following are the authentication method. SAML, without user ID password, you can log into the database. And SAP logon ticket mechanism, 509 ticket mechanism, Kerberos mechanisms, then assertion mechanisms, the password based mechanisms. These all are the authentication methods. These all are the authentication methods in the database. So these are the authentication methods. So initially we are discussing about the authentication, authorizations, roles, and everything, right? Authentication methods. Authentication methods means, so these are the authentication methods. So in the authentication methods, you can use the user ID password, or you can use the SAML. SAML means without, every time whenever logging to the database, every time you need to use enter the user ID and the password if you select the password field. If you select the SAML, then you no need to enter the automatically the SSO works. Same also here also certificate based authentication. So these are the Kerberos. So X.50 certificate based, and so assertion ticket. So these are the many authentication methods are available here. So means once you log into your organizational account, AD, kind of AD, administrator, Active Directory. So then you can integrate that AD into your HANA database itself. So that, so once you log into the your AD or organizational account, automatically you will be authenticated to the HANA database as well. That type of authentication methods we can create it here. That is called the authentication methods. So now we are using the password based method, which means you need to enter the passwords and confirm the passwords, and validity from validity to until at what time is need validity, tomorrow, next 1 year, or end of the life, then you can just leave it empty. You can leave it empty means he is having until the another database is there, he is having to the, so access, he is having to the access to the database. Okay, so this is that. The next one, what is the role here? What are the, so privileges? Now we'll discuss about the authorization. These are the authentication methods: user id and authentication. So these are the authorizations and privileges we have to give it. So the next one, authorizations, we are discussing about here. So the user which you are creating, who is he? He is the developer, he is the DBA, he is the real user, standard user, or what is this role? So based on that, you can assign the, if you have already predefined roles, you can assign to the roles to the here. Otherwise, you can create the system privileges you can create it, which means authorization. You are creating the user, but if you don't assign the authorization, how can he can access? Suppose, like example, I created the Ravi user here, I'm not assigned any authorizations here. Okay, so Ravi user is created here. You can see Ravi user is created now. Ravi user is created. Now I will log in with my database with so Ravi user. Let's see. ODBC, JDBC are, so it kind of mechanisms, client interfaces to access the HANA databases. ODBC, JDBC, HTTP calls, HTTP URLs. So we will use this one. We will use this authentication client interfaces to connect to the HANA databases. So here HANA database. So what is the instance number is the 00. Then tenant DB. You are connected to tenant DB. Now this is the S4H. Here user ID field you can enter the Ravi. Then initial password you can enter it. Okay. So then old password I am typing here. Then confirm the password you are using here. Done. So Ravi password is changed. I have changed the password now. So now see, I connected through. So user, Ravi user. But see here, I don't have any authorization. You have the just user ID and password. So you have the user, and there is a authentication method, password based authentication method you have enabled for this user. Then with password I logged into the system, but now you can see I am unable to access the data, unable to access the only administration tab in the studio. So why? Because I don't have authorizations to perform the database operations in the database objects. I don't have the privileges. I don't have the authorizations. I don't have the authorizations too. Okay. So these privileges can be granted to the user directly. So we can directly grant to the users directly actually. Okay. So now let's talk about the privileges and how the roles works and everything here, the privileges. You can see here. So now we can see cannot open the we don't have the required privileges, we don't have access. Now go to the here, now go to the here, just you created the user, that's it. But what about the privileges you are assigning here? So what about the privilege? These are the privileges, these are the privileges you are assigning to the user, anything you can assign to the user. So privilege, system privileges. So what is mean by system privileges? So system privileges means it's control the normal system activities in the system. So normal system related activities in the system. System related activities means creating the database, deleting the schema, so users creation, monitoring, backups, licensing, auditing, anything if you want to perform, you can use this. So system privileges here it is available. Suppose the user which you are creating is the backup administrators, then you can provide the backup administrator. So catalog read. So whatever the roles are, these all are the privileges are there. So maybe if you provide the catalog read, you can only read the, so you can only, he is only having access to the read only access, only catalog. You can only access the catalog related access. So then you can log into the our HANA Studio. You can use only this functionality. You can only use the this functionality. You can only use it. Even see here now it's opened. Ravi user is opened here. Now Ravi user is opened. The HANA Studio is opened. Previously we have not opened, but now we have opened here. HANA Studio we opened, but few tabs we don't have authorization. Why? Because insufficient privileges. You don't have much access in the system. So you don't have much access and delete. Suppose you want to delete something here, so then you cannot delete it as well. So if you want to configure the trace, if this all are the grayed out. Why? Because you are just DB catalog read only access you have, read only access you have. So suppose the person, the user which you are creating in node, you only read only access, catalog read only access, then you can create this one. Okay, system privileges, anything. Suppose if you click the plus symbol, you will get the multiple things. What activity is going to perform? Is the backup administrator? Is the auditors? What is the person? Is the user admin? So then you can create the workload admin. What is the person here? You can create the respective user here. The next one is called the object privileges. So object privileges means these are the required for the SQL privileges. Objects means data, some table in the database level you can access object privileges, which means if you provide the object privileges to the user, then he can just to create the objects, modify the objects, then whatever he want, like he can delete it, he can drop, so whatever he want he can create it. That is called the object privilege. Suppose object, go to the plus symbol. So here you will see the tables and data objects, everything from here. So you want to provide only the specific access to the only this these are the schemas. Actually, these are the schemas. Schema means the owner of the table. Schema means owner of the table. So if you provide the access to only schema, you can only access to the specific object only under the schema. Suppose if you provide the access to the sys, these are the schemas. If you provide the object to the specific, suppose you want to provide the access to the specific table, the specific table. Suppose you want to provide the access to the adapters table, then the adapter table you are providing. you want to give the select privilege, update, delete, insert anything, just you can just select yes, yes, yes. Just you can select it, then just click on the deploy button, so that that person is accessed only. So that person is can be accessed only that related authorization. But here in our case, see here we could not grant the select on the adapters. You are not authorized to perform the action. Why? Because directly you have not assigned any privileges, system privilege, just only object privilege you are assigning means it's not the correct method. Like SAP is saying that you are not the correct method. You cannot so grant to the others as well. You cannot grant to the others. Then check this one. Okay, see here, you cannot grant the privileges to the this one. You got the error. So system will detect it. You are giving this one. So that's why object privilege means so you can access the specific table. Why? Because in the database level all the tables objects will be stored, right? You want to give access to the specific object, the specific table, then you can use the this object privileges. You can use it object privileges. So system privileges means system related tabs. Suppose backup tab, so catalog tab, admin tab, other tabs, you can use the this admin, this related privileges you can give it. So analytical privileges. Analytical privileges means it's kind of so analytical calculations. Analytical privilege means it kind of so some developers, not the we developers, they will create the some some analytical privileges to access the data on the to access the data, some attributes data, some data calculation views. You can they will create the some analytical privilege. They will create it. So normally, so in the system the content tab, not only we only work it here, developers also they will do the work in the here. They will use only this content tab. The developers they will use only this content tab to create the analytical privileges. So packages and views and everything, they will use this one. The developers they will use it. We don't require this one. So while creating this one, they will create the access as well. Why? Because only the dedicated persons they have to use this analytical privileges, which means when you create anything here, when you create any package or anything here, so then see here analytical privileges, anything here, so then they will only create the this privilege what access you are providing here. Suppose like here city local, whatever you want to providing, then you can just click on the next button. Then only that related functionalities we can assign to the that particular user. So normally the developer do the development activities. The developers will perform the development activities in the system. All right, some attributes, privilege, validity, some data related activities they will perform it. So you want to assign that functionalities to the user. You want to assign that functionality to the user. So that only that related functionality you can assign to that person. That is called the analytical. Normally developers will perform this activity. You don't require this creation of the packages, attributes, calculation use and everything. You don't require that much of knowledge. Okay, just ignore that one. So if they created, they need only access to that one other users, then you can come to the analytical privileges. Then you can assign the what are the things they have created. So then you can assign to them. Simple. Those are the analytical privileges. Next one is the package privileges. Package privileges are used to provide the authorizations for actions. So maybe individual packages which are creating in the. So normally developers they will do the development activity in the database itself. They will do the development activity. For that one, they will go to the content tab. In the content tab they will create the packages. Respective packages they will create it. Then that respective package they will create it, and that package they will assign to the respective user only. The respective user they will assign to the respective users. So that you want to assign that package to the only specific people. Then you can go to the package. You want to assign this package to the specific people. Then you can go ahead and you can create the you can go ahead and you can create that package to so that package you can go ahead and you can assign this package to the Ravi user. That is the package. So this analytical privileges, package privileges are the developers. They will create it. If they need access, we can assign this package to them. Okay. So analytical privileges and package privileges. So it's mainly for the developers. They will own this one. Okay. The next one is the application privileges are. So these are the application privileges. Suppose so in the application side, maybe there is a one standard schema, sys underscore repo schema. Here the schemas, all the schemas data available in the catalog directory, all the data catalog schema, everything is available in the here in the catalog. So these all are the schemas. Under the schema we have the tables are available. Under the schema we have the tables are available. Under these tables we have the data, actual data resides into the these tables only. Actual data resides into these tables only. Actual data will resides into this table. This is the table. Actual our data resides here. So that's the reason. So where the our database data. So we are normally day one onwards we are talking. HANA database will store the data, right? Something like that we are discussing, right? Where it will store the data in the table level, where when we see the tables. So if you go to the HANA Studio catalog, under the catalog we have the table schemas are there. Schema is owner of the table. Under the schema we have the these are the schemas actually. Under the schema you have the n number of under the schema you have the n number of tables are there. These all are the tables. So you want to give specific access. Suppose system privileges, object means you want to give the specific table access. You can use the object privileges. System privileges means so he's kind of some technical user. So you want to give the access to the HANA Studio, HANA administrations, HANA tabs, configuration tabs. So landscape tabs, you can use the system privileges. Analytical privileges and package privileges are the so some developers they will create the some analytics and packages we can assign to them. Then application privileges means applications privileges. So application related, which means suppose he is the backup admin, then you can assign the backup admin related. So already in the system we have the default data available in the system. Okay, in the system we have default data already available in the system. Default roles, privileges, so already available. So you can use those default ones. If you want to create the new one, you can also create that one. So see here we have the suppose is the backup admin, then you can use the backup admin role privileges. So if you want to the specific application related privilege, you can use the security guy. So maybe he is the so tracer. Maybe you can assign the tracing functionality to him. He is going to perform the some other access. Then you can use the admin some other access and everything and you can perform it. These are the application access to the specific applications. Okay, so the privilege on the users means so suppose it's the same. Instead of you providing I need same privilege same as like here copy of the same privilege the system user, then you can use the this user privilege, you can create it, right? It's a very simple. Instead of you are doing all these tabs and everything, so I want same as like same privilege whatever the system user is having, same user privilege I want means just you can select the user, that user, then you can save it, then that user can be accessed here, that user can be so same whatever the person is having, same access you can do. That is the privilege on the users. Reference user, So in organization, application, only specific related to the applications, package, analytical privileges. So then object, the table level access, system privileges, only specific table. Suppose like in our team, suppose only the freshers are joined, then we can assign this catalog read. Suppose he is the backup admin, he is only required the backup roles means he can provide the backups. He is the auditor means you can provide the auditing roles. So whatever he role, so we can provide that role to him, then only that responsibilities he can perform it. So granted on the roles, which means already system we have the roles are there. So already system in the roles. So roles concept. So you can provide that roles to the that user. You can provide that roles to the user. Monitoring means you can only perform the monitoring related activities can perform in the system. Only monitoring related. So not the changes, configurations and everything. So everything. Modeling. Modeling means developers is the only developer. He is want to perform some development activities. Development activities means the privileges in the content tab you want to do. That time you can use the modeling role you can assign to the developers. So like that, we have the number of roles are available here. You can assign these roles to the user. You can only perform that related. Sir, how can I create the roles as well in the system? You can also create the roles in the system. If you go to the security tab, here we have not only users, here we have the roles also available. Roles means so standard roles already available in the system. Standard roles already available in the systems. So just to write, if you want to use it, you can use it. Okay, and if you want to use all these roles, you can use it any roles. Now you want to create the one custom role means right click and create the new role. Then here you can type the custom roles means it always starts with the Z star and Y star. So Z star and basis, suppose fresher, you want to create the basis fresher. Then, so what is the privileges you want to assign to that role? Suppose the basis means the fresher means is the reader. So is the catalog reader. So only these two functionalities we required. So then you just select these two functionalities, click on the save button, then only this fresher z underscore basis fresher role is created. Then when you are creating the new user, when you are creating the role new user in the system, HANA system, suppose like basis. So then here you have the granted roles. Here you have already role created. The fresher role already created. Fresher role already created. Then you can assign this fresher role to that person. Simple. Means instead of doing everything fun on the here, for every user you need to do something here. Instead of that one, you can create the one role. You can create the one role in the roles tab. Same role you can assign to the who are the joining the fresher. Same role you can assign to the that person. Granted role. So that whatever he is having access to the backup and catalog. He is only get the access to the these two functionalities. He will get the access, not the other functionalities. So we can create the role by right click and click on the new role creation. We can perform it. User, you can right click and can create it. Suppose you want to unlock the user. Suppose now see here Ravi user is there. I'm just locking the user. Locking means deactivating the user now. So now Ravi user cannot be performed anything in the system because he is deactivated. Now I'm going to the Ravi user. So see here the invalid username and password. So here the Ravi user is invalid now. Ravi user is invalid. Why? Because I have deactivated the user. You cannot log into the system. So you want to activate it. Go back, go to the here, then you can activate the user. Suppose Ravi user, just click on the activate the user. Nice. See here, it's activated. So now you can log into the Ravi user itself as well. Now you just click on it. So now you can log into the Ravi user also. See here, you log into the Ravi user as well. You want to change the password, you can change the password. You want to change the authentication mechanism, you can change it. So these are the authorizations, privileges, authorizations or privileges. These are the privileges. So system privileges. The granted role means we have already created the roles. Those roles directly can assign it. You don't need to assign anything here. So you are first time you are doing means, so you have to assign the individual. Then you go to the system role. Then you can just click the what are the role you are assigning. You can assign them. Object means table level. We can assign that object privilege, analytical privileges, package privilege, application privileges. So this privilege are the users. So these things you can assign to the users when you are creating the user or role. When you are creating the user or role, these things you can create to the user. Okay, this thing you can perform it. These are the small concept, users and roles concept. Okay, any questions from anyone? Very simple in the HANA Studio, HANA Security, but you don't worry about the security part. It's already in every organization there is a pure security person are there, so they will take care of the all the security work and everything. You won't get chance to work on the security part. Okay, because you are not the security person, just you are the administrator. But so to understand how to create the users and roles, just we discussed about the how to create the users, then how to create the roles, how to provide the validity. Suppose this user is valid only so only few days, then we can provide the validity until like that we can provide it. Only until access we can provide to the user. Any questions from anyone? You got it at least somehow to create the users and roles. Role creation, it's very simple. If you are the users and roles are there, just expand it. If you want to use the existing roles, you can use it the existing roles, right? But if you want to use the, I don't want to use the SAP provider roles, I want to use the my own roles, then you can go ahead and create the role here. Like that how I created, right click on the tab and create the new role here. Just create the role, provide the role name, then what you want to assign it to the them. Then you can assign to the one role, you can save it. Then when you are creating the user, you can directly assign that role to that person. Directly can assign. Instead of doing all this activity, role you created, just assign that role to that person so that he can access all these things, he can access it. So that's the thing of the role concept in the database level and everything.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
Sir, for example, if developer is there, so he will provide any the table name so that we can provide
They will
access
provide it,
according
right?
to that.
Yeah, definitely. Without we don't know how what table you need access. He will provide the access to that. He will ask us. I will ask you, right? Now what table you required. Then based on that, you can provide that table access to that person. Suppose you need access to the some SAML provider, something like runtime data you need access. Then you can assign this object to that person.
And what level of access they will mention that
You need
update
select
access
own. Yeah, they will mention it. You need full access, update access also. You can provide the update. You need only select access. You can select and give select access. You need insert. You need insert. You need drop access. You need drop access. Like that, he will mention it. So based on that, you can select it here. Then
No,
save it.
this will this access control list will be sent by his manager or directly by the developer.
No, the onboarding procedure, the user onboarding procedure will be initiated by the is manager, right? Approval is manager
Correct.
approval only. We will create it. So then
Correct.
yeah, they will provide it. Yeah, they will definitely. So please provide the only. So just display access to that person only few days means. Then we will only assign the display access.
Okay.
Normally we won't work on the security, HANA security, even SAP security as well. So why? Because we are the separate team for the security. They will take care of the this HANA security and SAP security and everything. They will take care. We are not going to work on the security part. But if you know these small things, so that is also better. Someone asked you, do you know HANA security user creation role creation? Yes, that's fine. They won't ask you much on this one.
Sir, if you are working on HANA database, so we have to create the users and roles, right, as part of our job.
Yes. Normally,
Yeah.
in everyone they will use the system in every organization. Few people. But in a few organizations who are following the compliance security standards and everything, they will create the separate user for security. Then separate user, then that user we have to log in and we have to work.
Okay, depends on the organization.
Yeah, depends upon organization.
Oh, okay. Thank you.